What precisely are security clearances and where do they come from? Security clearances are issued by many government agencies and can come in several different levels, offering different access to sensitive or classified material. And even if you have the highest level of clearance, that's not an invitation to plunder all files. You will likely see only materials you need to know about. Who gets security clearances? As a practical matter, they go to people who are intimately involved in the safety and defense of the United States and its allies. Now, this is not all military business. For example, there could be economic information or infrastructure details or negotiations with other countries which might be considered highly sensitive and fall under this umbrella. But all of this has to do with active government service. So why should anyone who's left the government retain his or her security clearance? Former employees of an agency have experience. They have institutional knowledge. And the people who take over for them may need that. Say you worked on some classified matter involving another country and a new team comes in. They need to know what you did. This would assist the new team to be able to talk to you about the current situation as well. In addition, some private industries, defense contractors, for example, do work that requires private citizens to deal with sensitive government matters. So having a security clearance outside the government can also be useful. So why would anyone lose or have their security clearance revoked? Usually that happens because they truly no longer need it, or some conflict has arisen. For example, they start working for a foreign hostile government, or they just get into trouble. They commit a crime or they're linked to some illicit or risky activity. But for criticizing or opposing a politician, no, that has not been a typical reason for such action.
Tom Foreman, thank you. Back with us now, Donald Trump biographer Michael D'Antonio, CNN presidential historian Douglas Brinkley, and former FBI special agent Josh Campbell. Gentlemen, the president ramping up his attacks against Brennan today. He writes this: has anyone looked at the mistakes that John Brennan made while serving as CIA director? He will go down as easily the worst in history. And since getting out, he has become nothing less than a loudmouth, partisan political hack who cannot be trusted with the secrets to our country. Josh, what's your reaction to the Washington Post now reporting the president's team is readying further clearance revocations and that all they need is a signature from the president?
So I think the tweet that you just showed there is Exhibit A in the case, that this never had anything to do with national security, and this is simply about petty politics. And the reason we know this is because the president's getting personal. He's going after Mr. Brennan, who, to be sure, has been no fan of the president, has spoken out very vociferously against him. But the fact that you have the chief executive, the president of the United States, who's now getting personal, shows that this is just an effort to discredit. With respect to the Washington Post reporting that we may see additional revocations that are coming down the line, it's funny, I kind of said half jokingly whenever this first happened, and we were covering the breaking news, that I was certain that the White House has on a shelf a list of topics that they can grab to throw out and launch and distract anytime they're facing uncomfortable news. And I think now we see that in this Washington Post reporting. We've seen this actual, detailed, that we have people that are now gathering information about possible, former officials that they want to revoke security clearances for, and they're waiting to time that just right. Just in, if there's something that happens that's unfavorable to them, some news cycle that they don't like, that they can then launch. I think it shows that it's petty politics. This has nothing to do with national security.
I mean, just think about the timing. They initially revoked John Brennan's during all of the drama around Omarosa and her tapes, and they put out this press release announcing that his security clearance was gone with a date that was for July 26th. So what you're saying, if you put two together, isn't too much of a stretch. But the president continues to deny that this has something to do with free speech, that he's trying to silence people. Watch.
There's no silence. If anything, I'm giving him a bigger voice. Many people don't even know who he is, and now he has a bigger voice, and that's okay with me because I like taking on voices like that.
Michael, you know the president well. Do you believe him?
Well, I think he's realizing that he's given Brennan more of a voice, and that's something he now has to accommodate and explain in a backwards way. We are so far down the road with the president's dereliction of duty that I think we forget that a normal president coming into office after Russia really attacking our election process would have brought John Brennan in and said, what can you tell me about this? He would have enlisted the wise men and women at every rank with security clearances and had them pursue this to the very ends of the earth so that we would all know what happened. But this is a president who puts himself above the country. He's far more interested in playing defense than in playing offense against Russia. And so we now have this real spectacle of him violating the norms for all of the time that presidents have dealt with security clearances and going after someone personally and politically, and it's disgraceful.
I want to read you the president's official reasoning for revoking Brennan's clearance. These are some of the key words in his White House statement. He says Brennan made, quote, unfounded and outrageous allegations, wild outbursts on the internet and the television. He also accuses him of lying and making frenzied commentary. Douglas, couldn't these all describe things the president does?
Exactly. I mean, John Brennan's not the loudmouth, Donald Trump is, and we all know that. Brennan has an incredibly distinguished career. He's always very balanced. Yes, he was very angry and upset when President Trump was in Helsinki standing next to Vladimir Putin and dissed American intelligence services while praising the KGB ex-hands running around Helsinki. He seemed to be over and over again, never willing to criticize Putin, but always willing to make fun of, mock people in our Justice Department, CIA, FBI. Brennan had enough, and he had the right for free speech. I focused this past week on William McRaven, 37 years in the Navy, the person who oversaw the killing of Osama bin Laden and Operation Neptune Spear, and wrote a scathing denunciation of Donald Trump. He's not a political person. He's one of our great SEALs, and he said what Donald Trump's doing is an embarrassment to the country, having this kind of enemies list that Trump has, reversing clearance on great Americans. He's threatening to do it to Susan Rice and James Clapper and many others. It's just beyond the pale, and that's why so many Americans are speaking out against Donald Trump. People in the know are saying that it's a bridge way too far.
A total of 9 people, by our count, are at risk of losing their security clearance, according to the president. There are their pictures. Michael, all of these people speaking out, the dozens of intelligence officials, does that make this president more or less likely to take away more?
Oh, I think he's likely to do more. I think it's true, as Josh said, that there is a stack of these orders on a shelf someplace, and next to that is a basket of additional tricks that he's going to pull out when he needs to distract and claim to be so oppressed by all of his enemies, when in fact many of these folks have been incredibly restrained. Brennan waited a year before he said anything, and the alarms have been going off ever since Trump came into office. So for him to go after these folks now is really just an example of his long practice strategy of distraction, of doing so many things we can't keep track of them, but everybody's on to him. Everyone knows what he's doing.
All right, all, thank you very much for joining us.